Welcome to the channel. Today we're sharing a cheating story you won't believe. If you enjoy it, please like and subscribe. Let's get started. Mark Johnson felt a grin spread across his face as he wiped sweat off his brow. Earlier that day, he got some great news. He'd been promoted to shift foreman at Summit Containers. The catch? He'd be working nights for the foreseeable future. While most people dread night shifts, for Dylan, it couldn't have come at a better time. His son Logan, a freshman in college, was busy with sports and school activities. Being on nights meant Dylan could attend Logan's events without needing to take time off. Dylan was no stranger to night shifts and had his routine for daytime sleeping down to an art. It suited him just fine. That was why he was crawling across roof trusses in his attic on a warm October afternoon. He'd been given Wednesday and Thursday off with pay after being informed of the promotion, which provided an opportunity to rest and prepare for his new position starting on Saturday night. Dylan had long planned to make a small apartment over his detached garage. It would become his fortress of solitude where he could peacefully sleep during the day, hoping to avoid the usual interruptions and distractions that frequently occur when a person tries to sleep while others are awake and active. Dylan was running a cable so he would have internet in his apartment since the Wi-Fi signal in the house did not reach the apartment. He decided to place an extender in the end of his house attic nearest his garage, hoping it would give a strong signal inside his apartment. As he worked at uncoiling the wire along the length of the attic, Dylan heard faint sounds coming from inside his house. It was early afternoon, so his wife, Sophia, should be at work, and their son, Logan, was visiting Melanie's parents for a few days, so the house should have been empty. Dylan crawled over the trusses toward the area from which the noises were coming. After moving 15 feet closer, Dylan was able to determine the origin of the soundset was his bedroom. Conversation grew much more distinct as Dylan settled over an unused air conditioning vent in his bedroom ceiling. Sophia had insisted the old vent was blowing cold air on her at night, causing her frequent neck aches. He had installed a new vent as far from Melanie's side of the bed as possible but never bothered to take the old one out, as it would have required repairing the hole in the ceiling created by pulling the vent. Dylan simply left it in the ceiling but not attached to any ductwork. He gently lifted the fiberglass insulation, which was resting on the floor of the attic, and slowly uncovered the vent. His gut wrenched when he saw his wife of 18 years moving under a thin man with an exceptionally pale butt. As painful as the vision was, Dylan was unable to look away. It was like watching a train wreck, which had once been his marriage. The couple had been grunting for a few minutes when Bryce's brain finally began to function. He set his phone to video and carefully placed it on the vent so the camera had an unimpeded view of his marital bed. "Love how tight you are," said the guy between Melanie's legs. "Does your husband ever tap this prime steak? Or does he have a needle wand?" "I've asked you not to mention Dylan," protested Sophia somewhat weakly in Bryce's opinion. "This isn't about him. He's a good lover and a great father. I'm sure he is. I'm getting ready to drop a big load inside you right here in his bed, yet you insist you're happy with how he has sex with you. What's wrong with this picture? I don't know why I let you talk me into doing this here. Right there. There's no chance of being caught in your apartment. I'm gonna climax," groaned Sophia. The guy covering Sophia suddenly tensed up. The couple became very still for a minute before Dylan saw the man roll off his wife. "See how intense it is when you take chances?" asked Melanie's lover. "Screwing in my apartment works great most of the time, but banging you in your marital bed takes it to another level." Dylan recognized the man enjoying his wife once he flipped onto his back after climaxing inside her. He was Jake Peterson, a driver for the logistics service company where both he and Sophia worked. He was recently divorced and had a daughter in Kevin's class. "That sounds terrible," responded Sophia, but without any real emotion. "You wanted to have sex in my bed because it turns you on to think you've put one over on Dylan. You act like it's a competition or something." "It is a competition, at least for men," replied Rivera with a soft chuckle. "You're a sexy woman, and the sex is great. But knowing you're married and him having sex with you in your husband's bed makes me the winner. Feels incredible. It wouldn't feel so great if Dylan caught us here. I don't know why I agreed to this, but it won't happen again. I'm worried about Dylan discovering us." "It would ruin my marriage," admitted Sophia. "Let's make a deal," suggested Rivera. "As long as you shut off your husband, I won't insist we do it in his bed. Once he gets between your legs again, we'll have to return so I can reclaim my place as top dog. I'm not going to refuse Dylan. He's my husband. I can't just close my legs and expect him to go along with it," reasoned Sophia. He's a man and wants sex on a regular basis. You do what you have to do, but keep in mind, he'll be inside you in this very bed as soon as possible. If he screws you, maybe that excites you as much as it does me, replied Rivera. Dylan had parked his truck inside his detached garage. It was hidden from view, so Sophia had no idea he was home and certainly had no idea he was listening to her conversation. His face was covered in sweat, dripping steadily from his body to the insulation covering the floor of the attic. He refused to let himself vomit, knowing how hard it would be to clean up and how bad it would make the entire attic smell. He forced himself to remain still as he listened to the loving couple get dressed and leave. As he made his way to the ladder, Dylan considered what he had just learned. A slimy creep was screwing his wife, and she was even going to withhold sex from him as much as possible to placate and please her lover. Dylan managed a grim smile as he considered that Sophia was going to have no trouble withholding sex from him because she was never again going to have his meat inside her. He studied his situation while taking a shower and came to several quick decisions. He wouldn't let Sophia know he was aware of her infidelity. Logan had 1 year of high school left, so Dylan decided his main focus would be his son. He'd no longer concern himself with Melanie, simply no longer cared about what she wanted or how she felt. Why should he give a rat's ass about her since she obviously held him in complete contempt? He wasn't willing to vacate the house he had spent 14 years remodeling so some sleazy prick could live there in comfort while banging his wife. Sophia hadn't sounded like she would be seeking a divorce, so Dylan decided to make an attempt to hang on until Logan graduated from high school. There was one thing he knew he'd need his apartment completed much sooner. Dylan decided he'd include some major upgrades rather than only sleeping there while working the night shift. It would become his living quarters for the next year and a half. He would need a small kitchen as well as a full bathroom. By the time Logan graduated and headed for college, Dylan would have had time to form a plan on how he wanted to proceed. To that end, Dylan called some contractors he knew and made appointments to get estimates. He had decided to hire a company to complete the work quickly and professionally. His promotion would easily allow him to cover the expenses. For the first time in his life, Dylan realized his time was more important than money. If he saved $1, half would be Melanie's. He was done with his old way of life. He'd always tried to do as much of the work on his home as he could, thinking it would benefit his family. That had all changed when he saw Rivera banging Sophia. He was going to make certain Kevin's college education was fully funded. Beyond that, Dylan was going to rebuild his life and have some fun while doing it. He no longer felt any allegiance to his cheating wife. Dylan had gained control of his emotions by the time Sophia walked in after work and saw him sitting in the kitchen. "You're home already? Did you get off early for some reason?" Dylan gazed at Sophia and decided she looked different to him. She had some lines and wrinkles in her face and carried a few extra pounds. Why hadn't he noticed it before? Had his love for his wife blinded him to her faults? It saddened him to think about his sudden change of attitude toward Sophia, but it had been her decision to have an affair. He was simply reacting. "Yeah, we're in a bit of a jam at work. I was asked to work nights for a while, starting tonight. They let me come home, pack a lunch, and rest. They'll be headed back in later. They shouldn't ask you to work nights after a day shift, even if you had some time off during the day," reasoned Sophia. "You'll be exhausted. At least lie down and sleep for a few hours." "Good idea," responded Dylan. "They'll just go crawl between the sheets." "Wait," insisted Sophia, far too loudly as she recalled the condition of the bed. "I just remembered I need to wash the bed linens." "Okay," responded Dylan calmly as he grimly chuckled to himself at Melanie's discomfort. "They'll just use the bed in the guest room. There's no need to get so excited." A few hours later, Dylan left the house as if he was going to work. He stopped at a local sports bar and watched a baseball game, enjoying a few beers. He had previously placed an air mattress in his future apartment. Once he was sure Sophia would be asleep, he parked inside the garage and went up the stairs to his waiting air mattress. He slept surprisingly well. One of the contractors Dylan interviewed the next day was between projects and offered a very good price if Dylan would agree to begin immediately. 2 weeks would see the contractor's crew moving to a new development miles away. Dylan agreed and signed the contract for the work to begin Thursday morning. His night shift operated from Saturday night through Wednesday night, and the plant would shut down Thursday evening and start up again Saturday night. Sophia knew Dylan would not have to work Wednesday night. Therefore, she was surprised when he got ready for bed and headed for the guest room the next night. "Why are you going to sleep in the guest room? We won't see much of each other while you're on night shift," So why don't you sleep in our bed? Asked a perplexed Sophia. Since I worked night last night and slept a few hours this morning while you were at work. I'm not very tired. I'm going to watch a baseball game and maybe a movie after that, replied Dylan with his planned excuse. I'm trying to get accustomed to staying awake nights and sleeping in the morning. I don't want to ruin your sleep. Unless you're thinking we should get it on, suggested Dylan as he wiggled his eyebrows suggestively. Melanie's reaction was just as Dylan had expected. If he hadn't heard her conversation with her lover, he would have missed her brief deer-in-the-headlights look before she gave a weak smile. I'm pretty tired tonight. Maybe we could just cuddle a little and go to sleep, responded Sophia. Besides, Kevin's home tonight. He might hear us. Cuddling won't cut it for me, replied Dylan. Once I get you in my arms and feel those tits of yours get hard, I want to have my way with you. If you're ruling out sex, it'll just eliminate temptation and sleep in the guest room. You never worried about Logan hearing us before, so that's just an excuse to avoid sex. You really don't need to make up stories. I'm not the kind of guy to push himself on a woman. I know that, Dylan. You're a good man. I'm just tired and don't feel romantic. I hope you understand. I understand better than you realize. Let me know when you're in the mood. If I'm in the mood at the same time, we might get together. Good night, retorted Dylan as he turned and headed toward the guest room, leaving Sophia with a confused expression on her face. Dylan played catch with Logan for an hour on Thursday and then did yard work. When bedtime rolled around, he strolled down the hall to the guest bedroom. Sophia watched his back and wondered why he was behaving so oddly. Dylan went into work early Saturday night to prepare for his role as shift foreman. By the time the production workers began appearing, he felt very good about his work situation. He hadn't bothered telling Sophia he had been promoted to foreman. She had secrets she kept from him, so he no longer had qualms about keeping things from her. His shift went smoothly, and he was well received by those working under him. He decided he had a great group of people on his shift. The new position carried more responsibility, but Dylan had seen all the problems before and knew how to deal with them. He settled into his job with minimal adjustment or difficulty. Sophia had already left for work and the construction crew was setting up when Dylan arrived home Thursday morning. He spoke briefly with the job foreman to be sure they were on the same page and then went inside. He fell asleep immediately but was awakened several times by loud sounds from the crew working on his apartment and once by the ringing phone. Cursing himself for neglecting to turn off the ringer on their landline in the guest room, Dylan answered with a groggy hello. I'm sorry, Dylan. Did I wake you up? Asked his mother-in-law, Maria. Is that why you called? Snapped Dylan with some annoyance. You wanted to know if I was sleeping? No need to get an attitude, responded Maria. I just wanted you to know James and I heard you were on night shift, and we won't be disturbing you. If you need us to do anything for Logan while you're sleeping, just let us know. Dylan hung up the phone without responding. As he unplugged the phone from the wall, he considered just how stupid people could be. Took a few minutes, but he fell back asleep. The construction crew completed their work in less than a week. Dylan marveled at how the contractor had finished the entire remodeling in 4 days. It would have taken him 4 months. When he woke up Friday afternoon, he drove to a furniture store and ordered a king-sized bed, a small kitchen table with 4 chairs, and a small sofa. Next, he drove to a major appliance dealer and selected a large flat-screen TV, a refrigerator, an oven, and a microwave. By Thursday afternoon, his bachelor pad, as Dylan considered it, would be ready for him to occupy full-time. He chuckled at how perplexed Sophia had been when she came home from work Thursday to find a crew of men bustling around the detached garage. She approached Dylan as he was chatting with the job foreman and insisted on a private discussion so he could tell her what was going on. I have them finishing an apartment over the garage, revealed Dylan. I want to be able to sleep during the day without people barging in or calling. I'm having it double insulated to keep noise to a minimum. There won't even be a landline. Since he'll be working nights for some time, I felt it would be a huge benefit to have a place I can sleep without putting you and Logan out. You won't even know I'm around. Not know you're around? Repeated Sophia. You're my husband and Kevin's father. We're supposed to know you're around. He'll be going to Kevin's baseball practices and games. He'll be bringing him home afterward, so he and I will spend lots of time together. Don't worry about that. We'll all be able to have dinner together. I told you a few days ago to let me know when you were in the mood for some special loving, but you haven't taken me up on my offer yet. Are you asking me to scratch your itch tonight? You're being such a jerk. Husbands are expected to do more than screw their wives when they feel like it. We expect conversations, seductions, and sharing ideas as well as problems. Marriage isn't just about raw sex, you know that. Don't even think about lecturing me about what constitutes a good marriage, cautioned Dylan. I'll put the efforts I make into this marriage against your efforts anytime. This will work fine. All you need to do is let me know when you want me in your bed to service you. I'm not some damn cow that needs or wants servicing, snarled Sophia. You won't be doing any servicing until you make a sincere apology. You'll want a nice evening out at a good restaurant along with that apology. Dylan broke into a big smile and simply walked away, leaving Sophia completely befuddled. He was making it easy to keep Jake Peterson from demanding she have sex with him in her marital bed. But Sophia was concerned about Bryce's attitude. He simply wasn't his usual self. He was ignoring Sophia, and that concerned her. He had always been a very attentive husband. She made up her mind she'd give Dylan a night to remember once he apologized for his crass behavior. She knew he wouldn't be able to go much longer without sex. A man can't go from getting laid 2 or 3 times a week to nothing and be happy. Sophia was confident he'd be after what she had. Had been that way since they first met. He was far too young to lose interest in sex. Dylan had completely moved into his new apartment by the following Friday. The coming weekend would feature 3 nights off because of Memorial Day. Kevin's senior year would begin the following Wednesday. How would you two like to go to a Thunderbirds game this weekend? Asked Dylan at dinner on Wednesday. They're playing the Titans and fighting for the pennant. It should be a great series. Seriously? That would be amazing. Thanks, Dad, gushed Logan. You know I don't like baseball that much, groused Sophia. They'll pass on that offer. They'll find something to do around the house. I bet you will, responded Dylan under his breath, yet loud enough for Sophia to hear. Settled. Logan and I'll go to the Saturday night game. Wow, I can't wait to tell Alex about this, blurted Logan. He'll be so jealous. He's a big Titans fan. He used to live in Meadowville. Why don't you invite him along? Suggested Dylan. Baseball's more fun when you watch it with friends, especially when they're fans. We'll call him right now. Thanks, Dad, replied Logan excitedly as he raced off to get his phone. You certainly made Kevin's day, observed Sophia. Baseball is a great way to bond with the boys. Eli is a nice, polite young man. Eli? His real name is Eli? Asked Dylan as he shook his head. No wonder he has a nickname. What kind of parent names a boy Eli unless they hate him or something? Logan told me Horace's father died of a brain aneurysm 3 years back. Continued Sophia as she pointedly ignored her husband's comment about the boy's name. He and his mother moved here this summer to be closer to her parents. They're older and in failing health. They'll just call him Alex and pretend I never heard his real name, declared Dylan just as Logan rushed back into the room. Scotty's mom said he can go, announced an almost giddy Logan. This is going to be great. Friday afternoon, Dylan pulled his truck into the driveway of a nice ranch house in a good neighborhood. Before he was able to stop, Alex was racing out the door. He jumped in next to Logan as soon as the pickup was safely parked. Mr. Waters, Mom says she wants to meet you before we leave. I guess she wants to make sure you aren't a serial killer or something, offered Alex. I'm sorry about that. No problem, replied Dylan as he climbed out of the truck, walked to the house and rang the bell. A slender, rather nondescript woman about Bryce's age opened the door. With a quick glance, Dylan determined her legs were her best feature. They were strong and shaped perfectly. Her running shorts provided him the opportunity to admire a lot of them. Her stomach was flat, while her chest barely pushed her top away from her torso. My legs look pretty good compared to the rest of me, don't you think? Asked Scotty's mom, much to Bryce's chagrin. Well, yeah, agreed Dylan once he saw the grin on the woman's face. You've got a great pair of legs. Do you think I should let my son go to a baseball game with a man who checks out every woman he sees? Challenged the boy's mother. I'm trying to raise a gentleman. Dylan saw the laughter in the woman's eyes and knew instinctively she was busting his chops a little. He decided to play along. What you're really asking is should you let your son go anywhere with a man who thinks checking out women is the best part of being a man, replied Dylan with a grin. He needs to learn how to appreciate the fairer sex. They'll show him what to look for and how to do it. I certainly hope you'll be less obvious during these life lessons you'll be giving Eli, countered the still smiling woman. The first thing I'll teach him is to smack anyone who calls him Eli, except his mom, of course, joked Dylan. I see my son will learn to be violent with people who address him by his given name as well as how to appreciate women's legs. Does that pretty well cover it? Not even close, responded Dylan. It'll show him the fine art of judging bums and chests surreptitiously. It's important he have a well-rounded education and not focus entirely on any single female attribute. That's a relief, replied Scotty's mom, thus gaining even more respect from Dylan. Have a good time and be sure Alex calls if you're going to be late. My name's Emma, by the way. Seriously, Emma? What do your friends call you? Asked Dylan. Oh, for my male friends, I answer to Lexi, Raven, Candy, or Bubbles. My girlfriends call me Emma, replied the straight-faced woman. Sounds good to me. I'm Dylan. We're going to be friends, so we'll call you Lexi. I kind of like that name. Why am I not surprised? Responded Emma before breaking into a hearty laugh. Eli can go along with you anytime. I love your sense of humor. Logan is a very polite young man, so I was pretty sure his parents would be fine. Thanks for inviting him to the game. We're a baseball family. I used to go to as many Titans home games as I could. My father even played in the minor leagues before I was born. He was pretty good, just not quite good enough, added Emma. Scotty's a great kid, so it's no problem. They'll keep an eye on him and make sure he gets back home in one piece. Lexi. Have a nice day. Is that going to stick? I was making a joke, protested Emma. You'll always be a Lexi to me, was the quick reply as Dylan turned and headed back to the truck. Dylan had a relaxing day at the game. Alex managed to catch a foul ball. Both boys ate too many hot dogs and drank too much soda. They fell asleep in the back seat of the truck before Dylan was able to exit the parking lot. When he reached Scotty's home, Dylan gently shook the boy awake and escorted the sleepy teen to his front door, where he was met by a beaming Emma. He may have had too many hot dogs and sodas, admitted Dylan. Of course he did, he was at a ball game, replied Emma. Thanks so much for taking him and bringing him back safely. It was my pleasure. Scotty's a great kid, Lexi, retorted Dylan. They'll see you at the next game. Dylan settled into a routine which worked well for him. He would get home, have a small breakfast, and then sleep from 9 to 3. With the extra soundproofing and blackout curtains on his windows, he usually slept soundly. Sophia complained occasionally about him always sleeping in his man cave even on weekends. She let the subject alone as soon as Dylan asked if she needed his services. Dylan decided she was truly worried about Rivera insisting on sex in her bedroom and being caught. That suited Dylan fine. It indicated she wasn't contemplating asking for a divorce at the moment. His goal of remaining married until Logan graduated high school seemed attainable. Because he was a foreman and getting less exercise, Dylan purchased a home gym machine that was advertised to give a complete body workout. To his pleasant surprise, it performed as advertised as long as he was diligent in using it. He attended all of Kevin's baseball practices, and soon the coach had him working with a few kids off to the side while the coach was doing drills with a different group of players. Logan was a pretty good player and showing signs of improvement, but Alex was a real surprise to Dylan. At the start of the season, he showed some talent but was tentative and timid. Dylan worked with him as much as he could. They even spent a few hours on weekends practicing at the local park. Dylan decided since he wasn't having sex, he might as well take the edge off by playing baseball with the boys. As Scotty's confidence grew, his level of play increased dramatically. By the season's halfway point, Alex was batting cleanup and playing shortstop at a high level. Logan was the starting center fielder and batting third. Dylan was tremendously proud of both boys' accomplishments. One thing Dylan could not help but notice was the attention some of the kids' mothers had begun paying him. For some reason, his jokes actually made them laugh. His efforts with the kids were constantly praised. A few mothers would bake something for the team, but they always made sure he received a piece of whatever it was. Kevin's friendship with Alex, as well as the time Dylan spent with the boys, naturally caused Emma and Dylan to spend time together. Dylan thought of her as a smart friend with a great sense of humor. He decided to ask Emma if she had noticed the increased interest the mothers were showing him. I may be way off base here, Lexi, but I have to ask you a bit of a personal question, began Dylan. Almost a cup, was Gretchen's quick response. What? I don't get it, admitted Dylan. When men preface a question to a lady by saying it's personal, aren't they usually going to ask her about her bra size? Well, yeah, that's usually true, agreed Dylan with a chuckle. In this case, I was going to ask if you've noticed some of the mothers have been treating me differently the last couple of weeks. Do you think they seem a little friendlier lately? Well, aren't you Mr. Observant, retorted Emma. You really don't know what's going on. Do you? I'd need more information regarding the what to which you refer before I could answer that question, mused Dylan. I understand the infield fly rule. I know you never make the first or last out of an inning at third base. You aren't referring to those baseball axioms, are you? No, I was talking about the unwritten rule of never bunting or stealing bases when you have a huge lead, quipped Emma before becoming more serious. If you've been paying attention, you know the friendliest team mothers are also single mothers. You're a great dad, a good-looking guy, and have a pretty decent job. That makes you a damn good catch in their book. What about the fact I'm a married man? Wouldn't they take that into consideration? Asked Dylan. They have, responded Emma. That's why they haven't actually attempted to seduce you. No one's tried that yet, have they? No one seducing me has ever been a problem, replied Dylan. I'm married, so I obviously can't be a good catch for anyone. Dylan, I don't like how I seem to be the one who has to tell you this, but we're friends, so it falls on me. The mothers all know your wife is cheating on you. If that's not bad enough, the rumor is she shut you off from sex. You don't sleep together, and it's a foregone conclusion you'll become a free agent in the not-too-distant future. These women want to sign you up for their team as soon as you're released. Dylan was stunned by Gretchen's revelation. How could so many people know his personal situation? Who would possibly know about his sex life or lack thereof? Then it hit him. Sophia must have told that dog they weren't sleeping together, and he's bragged about it to someone. That miserable scumsucker. Are you referring to your wife or her lover? Asked Emma as she tried to lighten the mood. I have to say you don't appear to be all that surprised by the rumors. Did you already suspect Sophia was cheating? No, I never suspected, answered Dylan. You had no idea at all? Asked a disbelieving Emma. I knew she was cheating. I just never suspected it, responded Dylan. You're losing me here. How could you know it without suspecting it? It's pretty simple. I never suspected a damn thing until the moment I found Rivera banging Sophia in our bed. I went from having no clue she was cheating to certain in the space of a few seconds. I totally skipped being suspicious. That revelation creates more questions than it answers, stated his confused friend. You saw them doing the horizontal mambo, yet you remain married, and you're not incarcerated. You're not a swinger, are you? Or a guy who likes to watch? Please don't be one of those creeps. I'm not, don't worry about that, assured Dylan. I decided to adjust my priorities. Being able to spend a lot of quality time with Logan and not being a part-time dad became my first objective. Living with Sophia rather than divorcing her seemed like the best way to accomplish it. I started working nights, and that's always been tough on our sex life. I built a nice apartment over my detached garage, and I live there. I told Sophia it was so I could get sleep during the day without being pestered and annoyed by everyday noise. She wasn't happy about the sleeping arrangements, but Rivera told her every time she had sex with me, he'd insist on banging her in our marital bed. That seemed to worry her, just not enough to stop screwing him. She thinks her affair is a secret and wants to keep it that way. I didn't tell her, but I won't be having sex with her for any reason. I went to the clinic and was tested for STDs. I'm clean. I want to keep it that way. You're serious? You heard that witch. How can she treat a guy like you so badly? What a jerk that guy is, fumed Emma. All the single moms think you'd be a great catch. I think you may have an inflated opinion of my desirability. I've never been the matin idol type. I do have a good job, so that might make me look better to some of the more desperate women, offered Dylan. Are you kidding? Look how handsome you are. You have a wonderful smile, pointed out Emma. You're strong, kind, smart, and great with kids. If I weren't so plain-looking and flat-chested, I'd have already tossed my hat into the ring along with my fully cupped bra. I think I'd better shut the hell up, replied Dylan. Thanks for being a good enough friend to tell me what people are saying and thinking, replied Dylan with a frown. I didn't realize everyone knew I'm a cuck. It's pretty embarrassing. I can't keep my own wife happy. I'm a world-class chicken. You're a good man who wants to be a good father to his son. You're strong enough to endure this so you can have a great relationship with Logan. Alex thinks you're pretty cool too. Who? Asked Dylan. You must be feeling better if you can tease me about Scotty's name, observed Emma with a smile. Lexi, you're a great friend. You've kept me from getting my head stuck too far up my butt. I just hope Logan doesn't find out. That horse has either left the barn or is getting damn close, revealed Emma. Alex says Logan knows things aren't right at home. You pretty much avoid his mother. He's bound to hear something when so many people know about it. You know what worries me? Added Emma. Alex is sweet on Sophie Rivera. How awkward is that for him and for me? She's a nice girl. She's got no idea what a miserable prick her father is. "I'm just glad Logan isn't the one sniffing around Sophie," stated Dylan. "What a mess that would be. I should be happy for small favors. Alex tells me Logan is pretty interested in Holly Ingram, but that shouldn't surprise you very much. She comes to every game and cheers for every move he makes," stated a smiling Emma. "Yes, I've noticed her hanging around. She seems like a nice girl. I knew her dad and uncles in school," recalled Dylan. "They're a good family." 2 nights later, Kevin's team was playing in the first round of the district championships. Dylan realized as game time drew closer, he was probably more nervous than Logan. It didn't help that the usual 3 single mothers were determined to get his attention. Sarah Parks was wearing a top that exposed a good portion of her ample chest. She kept finding reasons to lean over in front of Dylan to pick something up or look for something. Dylan had to admit her cleavage was spectacular. Molly Green kept her chest covered, but with a very tight and form-fitting sweater. Her small waist and flat stomach served to accentuate the allure of her full, firm chest. She constantly asked Dylan questions about the team and the players. Tracy Morgan was less subtle. For some reason, she had to stand close enough to Dylan to keep her impressive chest pressed against his arm or side. Emma gave him a knowing smirk as she handed him a soda and hot dog before returning to her seat on the first base side of the diamond. Dylan noticed all 3 ladies found some reason to leave his general vicinity all at the same time. He thought it was odd until he heard a familiar voice behind him. "I thought I'd join my husband this afternoon to watch my son play. I didn't realize I'd have to wade through so many admirers to reach him," observed Sophia more loudly than necessary. "What's going on, Dylan?" "The game hasn't started yet, but Logan looked pretty good in batting practice," replied Dylan in an effort to deflect the question. "Nice try," snapped Sophia. "Why were those women hanging around you like flies on a turd? It's a good thing you aren't allergic to silicone. If you're asking me to explain the workings of the female mind, you're out of luck." "I have no idea," admitted Dylan. "I'm even surprised you're here. My son is playing in an important game. I'm here to support him. Obviously, other mothers are here. Apparently, some of them are not here just for their kids. You've been too busy to come to the games," observed Dylan. "How did you get away from your obligation today?" Sophia glanced at her husband when he mentioned her obligations. She briefly wondered if he was implying something. As quickly as the thought entered her mind, she dismissed it. If he had any suspicions, he would have been much angrier and far more confrontational. One thing she knew about Dylan was he would never accept her cheating. If he knew, he'd let her know about it in a very obvious way. "I made time. This game is important for Logan, which makes it important for me. I've hardly seen you since you went on the night shift, so I thought it would be nice to spend some time together cheering for Logan," reasoned Sophia. As Sophia and Dylan sat down in the bleachers, she noticed she was being watched by several of the other mothers, and they didn't appear to be all that friendly. Sophia wondered about that. What could she have possibly done to annoy the other mothers? This was the first game she had attended. She had no other form of interaction with any of them, so she could think of no reason for them to dislike her. Sophia then noticed Emma sitting off to the side as usual. She failed to stand out in any way, although Sophia noticed her hair had been professionally done, and her legs looked good in a pair of shorts which may have been a little too short, especially considering the cool temperatures of the day. The game began, and Bryce's attention was riveted on the playing field. The first 2 batters struck out before Logan stepped into the batter's box. Sophia was worried for her son when she saw how fast the first pitch was and how close to his head it had been. The second pitch was low and away from Logan, but he connected solidly and lined it over first base for a stand-up double. Alex was the next batter. Sophia noticed that he seemed older, stronger, and more confident than he had been last summer. The first pitch popped into the catcher's mitt close to Scotty's head. If he hadn't leaned back, it might have hit him. Sophia heard Dylan chuckle as Alex prepared for the next pitch. "Trying to intimidate those 2 boys is a big mistake," stated Dylan to those within hearing. "I just hope the pitcher tries to sneak a fastball by Alex." The other spectators nodded in agreement as the pitcher went into his delivery. He was a hard thrower and he put something extra on the next pitch. There was a loud crack as Scotty's bat met the baseball as it crossed the plate. Oohs and ahs echoed across the bleachers as the ball disappeared over the center field fence. Logan trotted across the plate and waited for his friend to touch home plate before exchanging high fives. Emma was beaming with pride as her son circled the bases. She glanced over at Dylan only to see small tears on his cheeks. He had spent countless hours working on fielding and batting with Logan and her son. His pleasure and pride were almost palpable. Emma was extremely grateful for the mentoring Dylan had provided her son since their arrival. Alex was growing into a fine young man, and Dylan had played a huge part in his character development. Sophia drove to the pizza shop to join Dylan and Logan as the team celebrated the win. She found a parking space quite far from the door. By the time she entered the restaurant, she saw both Sarah Parks and Molly Green standing way too close to her husband. Their big chests were in frequent contact with his arms, back, and chest as he helped sort out the drinks for the boys. Sophia wasn't surprised when they seemed to disappear as she approached. It caused her to mentally repeat a conversation she had 2 weeks prior with her lover, Jake Peterson. "It's about time we got it on in your bed, don't you think?" pushed Tom as Sophia was getting dressed after a sex session. "Banging you in your husband's bed really gets my motor running. You said you wouldn't do it in our bed again until Dylan and I had sex," reminded Sophia. "I'm not comfortable risking it." "Are you actually telling me you haven't had sex with your husband since the day we had sex in your house?" asked her incredulous lover. "You said I should shut him off for as long as I could, and you wouldn't press me to have sex in our house until he made love to me. He went on the night shift that day and has been sleeping in a room over the garage. We haven't even shared a handshake since." "That's just plain crazy," replied Tom. "He's way too young, and you're far too hot for him to lose interest in sex." "Is he gay? Does he have a girlfriend or something?" "He's certainly not gay," insisted Sophia. "He's very masculine. He'd never cheat on me. He's just working nights. He's tired most of the time. He only shows up for dinner except on weekends when he does the yard work and things. No normal man married to a piece of meat like you would willingly go without, even if he worked 18-hour days," stated Rivera. "He must be screwing around. That should make it easier for us to get together. He's getting his and I'm getting what used to be his. Dylan would never be unfaithful to me," stated Sophia firmly. "He takes our marriage vows very seriously. He isn't the kind of man to sneak around and engage in some tawdry affair." "Is that what you think you're doing?" demanded Tom. "Well, no. This is just a temporary thing. Kevin's been too busy with work and Kevin's baseball to pay much attention to me. I deserve a little fun. I work hard to keep the house and make meals as well as work full-time," reasoned Sophia. "We know this won't last." Tom smiled as he considered Melanie's words. "I suppose you're right. Well, just enjoy the ride while it lasts. Give me a day I can drill you in your bed. It still cranks me up." As Sophia recalled Phil's words, she became concerned as she watched the two women hovering around Dylan slink away. It was obvious he had some damn attractive women with big chests and tight bodies who were interested. She realized she needed to protect her marriage from the efforts of those women. Then she noticed Emma sitting off by herself. Sophia quickly formulated a plan. She put on a big smile and sat down next to a surprised Emma. "It's good to see you again, Emma. Alex has become quite a good ball player, and he's a very nice boy. You should be proud of him." "I am," admitted a wary Emma. "Logan is doing very well too. The time Dylan has spent with him is paying off. He's really been a great mentor for Alex." "Yeah, sometimes Dylan is too good," responded Sophia as she saw an opening for her proposal. "I'm sure you've noticed how those big-chested blondes are always hanging around him. I was wondering if you could help me out. I know Dylan would never stray under normal conditions, but he's a man, and those women are all but flashing their big chests and spreading their legs when they're around him." "How do you expect me to help you out?" asked Emma. "Spray them with cold water when they get too close?" Sophia suggested. "You know, I'm not able to go to most of the games and practices because of my work and other commitments. I know I can trust Dylan with you. You aren't his type at all. If you would just stay close when I'm not around, I'd really appreciate it. I'm going to tell Dylan he should stay closer to you and act more attentive. Those husband-stealing witches will think he's settled on you and hopefully leave him alone. I know it may be embarrassing for you to pretend like that, but it's for a good reason. You could save our marriage. Please, let me see if I have this right," responded a disbelieving Emma. "You're worried that these attractive, sexy, single mothers might seduce Dylan, so you're asking me to sort of stand in for you when he's at ball games and practices? You feel I'm a safe single mother because I don't have big chests and am rather drab-looking? I didn't say you were drab. I just know Dylan. For whatever reason, he's less likely to fall for you than some big-chested ex-cheerleader type. You'd be helping him keep his vows. You feel that cheating on your spouse is a deal-breaker?" questioned Emma thoughtfully. Would it be so terrible if he tapped a few of those willing ladies as long as he kept you as his number one? I hope you're joking, rejoined Sophia. I love my husband, but he'll never tolerate cheating. It's truly the deal-breaker you mentioned. It destroys the marriage contract. I could never condone infidelity. As far as I'm concerned, the marriage would be over. You must understand how I feel. You were married for years. I understand fidelity and loyalty. It makes sense that cheating breaks the marriage contract, acknowledged Emma. I have to agree. I have to get over to Dylan. Can I depend on you to keep a close watch on him when I'm not around? Asked Sophia. Oh yes, responded Emma with a smile. Be sure to explain it all to Dylan. He'll keep my part of the bargain. Who would be better to keep a good man celibate than a flat-chested, homely, boring woman? I wouldn't have put it quite that way, but you've pretty well covered it. Thanks again, replied Sophia as she left to join her husband. Last night, Sophia wanted to talk before I left for work. Began Dylan at the next day's practice. The crux of it was there are too many sexy single moms hanging around me. She feels I would be much safer if I stayed close to you, Lexi, or as she calls you, Emma. Why don't I feel safer? You're a smart man. You know you're never going to be safe around a single woman, regardless of how small her chest is and how plain she looks, joked Emma. Lexi, you're one of the most attractive women I've ever met, responded Dylan earnestly. You're the whole package. Wow, you just made my job harder, admitted Emma with a blush. They'll make an appointment to have your eyes checked after the baseball season ends. You'll find I have 20/20 vision, and am an excellent judge of character with one glaring exception, stated Dylan. I seem to have misjudged my loving wife. I think she may have misjudged us, replied Lexi. That is, if you really find me attractive. Dylan was amused at the reaction of the single mothers as Lexi remained close by his side. He spent a lot of time chatting and joking with her. The most common reaction was disbelief, followed closely by disappointment. It took less than one practice for Lexi to cut him from the herd. The team's next game required a 3-hour drive to Riverdale. It was decided the team would travel the day before the game and spend the night at a hotel. It was hoped the boys would be rested and fresh for their next challenge. Dylan had given rides to Jake Winston's parents as well as Lexi. The discussion en route focused on the team's chances of winning districts and possibly the state title. They arrived at the hotel right behind the team bus. Dylan helped Ralph Winston retrieve his luggage from the trunk. Some of the parents, including the Winstons, had volunteered to chaperone the boys and would be staying at the same hotel. All the other parents had to make their reservations at different hotels since there were several games being played the next day. A great many fans and players were in town. 6 teams would compete in 3 games from different class schools. Before Logan had climbed on the bus, Dylan had told him he would not be staying in the same hotel and to behave for his coaches and chaperones. He assured his son he would be at the team practice the next morning. What hotel are you staying at, Lexi? Asked Dylan as the Winstons wheeled their bags to the team hotel. The same hotel you are, was her simple response. I never told you which hotel I was using. How did you find out? Asked a perplexed Dylan. I didn't, was the brief response. How do you know we're at the same hotel? It's pretty busy this weekend. You may not be able to get a room at the last minute, pointed out Dylan. I'm sure something will come up, replied Emma with a big grin, confusing Dylan further. Dylan arrived at his hotel a few minutes later and asked Emma, Lexi, do you want to see if you can get a room while I check in? I can wait around to be sure you find something. Thanks, but I'll just wait here. It'll be fine, she insisted. Dylan was finally beginning to see the light as he checked in and picked up his room access cards. He returned to his truck to find Lexi waiting. Is there any chance you'd like one of these cards to my room? He asked. It's room 207. What a thoughtful gesture, exclaimed Lexi as she stepped from the car, accepted the key, and kissed Dylan on the cheek. Let's get to bed. It's going to be a long night. Dylan was far more tired getting up the next morning than he had been when he went to bed. At first, he had mentally struggled with the reality of breaking his marriage vows, but Lexi helped him through it. Let's look at this logically, Emma had said. Sophia has not only been unfaithful, but she's agreed to shut you off sexually. Even if she hadn't, she would still be placing your health at risk by having unprotected sex with a damn tomcat. Effectively, she's made sexual relations with her both unsafe and undesirable. She's released you from your vows and your marriage contract. I haven't had sex in over a year. I've had checkups and am clean. You were tested after you discovered she's a cheating witch and you're clean. I went on the pill over a month ago in hopes of hooking up with you. Can you honestly give me one reason we shouldn't sleep together? Is it my looks? Your wife thought I was a perfect foil for all the big-chested, beautiful women who were showing an interest in you because she knew you'd never be attracted to me sexually. Am I just not desirable? Lexi, you're extremely desirable. Don't ever suggest you aren't. I've never cheated on Sophia, and it's taking some adjustment to my thinking, but you've made a great case for us getting together. I'm ready, declared Dylan with a grin. There's something else you need to know first, replied Lexi. Both my parents are in hospice and aren't expected to live much longer. My brother's been sending game films of Alex to a friend of his. The friend is the baseball coach at the best academy in the LA area. If Alex gets a baseball scholarship for next year, we'll probably move back. I like you a lot, but we're not looking at a lasting relationship. Can't last. Look at us. You're a good-looking married man with a cheating wife. I'm a plain Jane with a son who has a chance to get an athletic scholarship to a good university. I have to do what's best for Alex, she concluded. That's great to hear about Alex, stated Dylan proudly. He's a good kid and a very talented ball player. I'm glad he'll have a chance to hone his skills against strong competition and gain a good education at the same time. You're the biggest reason he's being looked at by better schools. I know how much time and work you put in with him. It's ironic that you being such a good mentor to my son actually gave us the opportunity to move back to LA and away from you. I don't think he'll be very good at a one-night stand sort of thing, worried Dylan. It might be better to forego sex entirely than to have one night of sex and go back to being a monk. You silly man. I said, well, probably move back to LA for the coming school year. That's over 6 months away. A guy could get laid a lot in 6 months, unless he's too old for a steady diet of hot sex with a very needy woman. That's something we'll just have to find out. Will you live up to your nickname, Lexi? Joked Dylan. I will for you, big boy, promised Lexi. When you want me, just whistle. They'll teach you how to whistle. I've always been told my whistling is quite respectable, quipped Dylan. Then you're not doing it right, retorted Emma. The baseball team went on to win the state championship, and Alex was awarded a scholarship to a prestigious California academy. Both of Gretchen's parents passed away before holiday, within a week of each other. Dylan and Logan attended their funerals. Dylan met Gretchen's brother and liked him immediately. Dylan, meet my brother, Oliver, introduced Emma. Oliver, this is Scotty's baseball mentor and our good friend, Dylan. Holy cow, exclaimed Dylan. Your name is Oliver? Right, agreed Gretchen's brother. Only Emma and my folks ever call me Oliver. I answer to Dex with everyone else. What do you call my sister? I call her Lexi, but don't ask why, insisted Dylan. I don't think I have to ask, replied Dex with a laugh. Dylan spent holiday with Sophia and Logan at her parents' house. For the first time in months, Dylan found himself preparing for bed with Sophia. They always stayed over holiday night, and Dylan couldn't come up with a good excuse to change that tradition. Sophia took her time removing her clothes in front of Dylan. He tried to keep his reaction subdued, but his Johnny gradually responded to the visual stimulation. Sophia was a very attractive woman with a nicely toned body. We haven't slept together in a very long time, said Sophia. You must be in need of some loving by now. Make love to me. Dylan felt bad about his next comment even as he replied, you finally admit you need to be properly serviced. I knew you'd break. They'll be glad to top you off and put a big smile on your face for the holiday. You miserable pig. You won't be getting any sex for years with that attitude, snarled Sophia. What's wrong with you? You can just forget I was thinking of allowing you to even touch me. Okay, was Bryce's only reply as he rolled over so his back was to Sophia. He didn't second-guess his comment, although it was out of character for him. It did achieve his objective, which was avoiding sex with Sophia. Dylan did regret, however, that his marriage had deteriorated to its present state. Sophia was worried about Bryce's snide comment, making sleep difficult. As she lay next to him, she wondered if he knew about her affair, or if he was just being miserable because they hadn't been having sex lately. She decided she would have to discuss it with Tom. He needed to forget about having sex with Sophia in her marital bed. That statement had caused her to avoid and deny her husband, which could eventually make him suspicious, could ruin her marriage. Dylan had a routine he followed when he worked the night shift. He went home, ate a small breakfast, and went to bed by 9 a.m. often. He would be awakened around 2 p.m. by Lexi climbing naked into his bed. They would make love for an hour before she would leave to be at home when Alex returned from school. Baseball was done for the season, which allowed Dylan to be showered and shaved when Logan returned home from school. Dylan would often catch a nap in the evening before going to work. All in all, it worked well for Dylan and Lexi. One night in early November, Dylan received a call from Logan shortly after arriving at work. "Dad, Alex and I are out with Sophie and Holly in Heather's car. You said we could be out until midnight because there's no school tomorrow. We have a problem. Sophie was driving her mom's car, and we have a flat tire. There's no spare in the trunk. We're stranded on Elm Street, and I'm kind of worried. I see a few guys down by the arcade looking this way. You're broke down on goddamn Elm Street by the damn arcade?" cursed Dylan. "We'll discuss this later. Is Sophie driving that Civic?" "Yeah, it's a 2020 Civic," replied Logan quickly. "They'll find a wheel and tire that'll fit it and be right there. Keep your doors locked and call the cops if you have any trouble. Take care of those girls." Dylan dropped his phone in his pocket and strode onto the production floor. He quickly found the man he needed. "Pete, you still drive that Civic, don't you?" asked Dylan of a bearded man running a forklift. "I need a mounted tire that fits your car, and I need it right now." As Dylan spoke to Pete, another thought came to him when Nate Hoffman walked by. Nate was Hollis' uncle. His younger sister was Hollis' mother. "Nate, my son and some friends are broke down on Elm Street with a flat tire and no spare. Holly is with them. I'm getting a mounted tire from Pete and headed over. I'd appreciate it if you rode along." "I have a real spare tire and not some donut," declared Pete. "Let's take my car and get down there now." Nate, Pete, and Dylan immediately headed for the door to the parking lot. They were concerned about the kids being in that part of town late at night. It was no place for good kids, especially teenage girls. Sophia was lying in bed, enjoying the warm glow she always felt after a romp with Tom. His phone rang and he glanced at the caller ID. "Damn it, it's Sophie. I have to answer it or she'll be bugging the hell out of me for ignoring her." Sophia could only hear one side of the conversation but was concerned about what she overheard. "Why in hell are you kids down there?" "Well, that's too bad. Those boys are old enough to handle a little problem like that. Call AAA. It's not my fault your mother is too damn dumb to keep a spare tire in her car." "What was that all about?" asked Sophia once Tom disconnected the call. "Nothing to worry about," was Phil's reply as he reached over and stroked Melanie's firm chest. "Sophie has a flat tire, but she's calling AAA to get it fixed." Several young tough guys were hanging around Heather's car when Dylan and his friends pulled to a stop directly behind it. Dylan quickly stepped out and pulled the jack and tire iron from Gus' trunk. Pete brought the spare tire while Nate tapped on the driver's side window and motioned for Sophie to lower it so he could speak to her. "You kids sit tight until we get the tire changed. If these aholies cause any trouble, we'll take care of it. Holly, you'll be explaining to your mother why you're even here on Elm Street." Dylan carried the jack over behind the flat rear tire and slid it under the frame. He cranked it until it was tight to the frame and then moved in front of the tire to loosen the lug nuts. The obvious leader of the group of tough guys approached Nate as Dylan worked on the tire. "You're on our turf here. You need my permission before you screw around with that car." Before Nate could respond, Dylan jerked the tire iron around and cracked the guy in both shins. The man dropped to his knees and then rolled on the ground, rubbing his shins as he cursed a blue streak. Dylan grabbed the punk by the collar and dragged him face down to lie near the flat tire. Then he proceeded to sit on the man's back and resume loosening the nuts. The two nearest gang members rushed over, apparently intent on getting Dylan off their incapacitated leader. Nate hammered the first one in the side of the head, and he dropped like a rock. As Pete stepped forward, the second guy backpedaled out of his reach. "Raise the car up a ways, and he'll pull this tire," Dylan told Nate in a calm voice. Nate proceeded to crank the car higher as the gang of toughs called insults and cursed at the men. Now and then, the guy under Dylan would try to squirm out from beneath him, but Dylan would grab the man's greasy hair, pull his head up a few inches, and briskly push it back into the pavement. It only required 2 lessons before the man on the ground decided to remain still. Dylan took the lug nuts off and removed the flat. He accepted the good tire from Pete and slid it into place. Once he had all the lugs hand-tight, Nate lowered the car. All 3 men seemed to be ignoring the toughs who were taunting them as they worked. Dylan tightened the lug nuts and stood. He accidentally kicked the leader in the nuts as he went to step over him. "Are you dumb punks talking to us?" asked Dylan as he stepped toward the gathered gang members while casually tossing the tire iron from hand to hand. As soon as he started for them, the group scattered. "You kids get the hell out of here," instructed Nate as Dylan backed the gang farther away from the car. "Be careful you don't drive over those dumb punks lying in the street, and stay the hell out of this part of town." The three men piled back into Gus' car and followed Sophie as she drove to the next intersection and turned toward the kids' home area. "I can't believe you smacked that dumb scum sucker in the shins like that," laughed Pete. "He went down like a sack of potatoes." "Thanks for inviting me along," added Nate. "My hand hurts, but it felt great to crack that punk upside the head." "Then you sat on the Aholi while you changed the tire," cackled Pete. "That was fun to watch." The men were still laughing and recounting their experience as they returned to their jobs. By morning, the story had circulated through the entire plant. Tales of daring and adventure were always popular, especially on the night shift. They helped the night go faster and gave everyone a chance to take their mind off how tired or sleepy they felt. The next afternoon, as Dylan was waking up, Lexi jumped into his bed and kissed him long and hard. She was naked and obviously eager for him. "Alex told me what happened last night. You were great. Thanks for taking care of the kids like that," gushed Lexi. "You're about to get so lucky. I would have been over sooner, but I had to wait for Alex and Logan to go visit the girls since they don't have school today." Sophia had only been at work for an hour when Catherine Evans approached her at the water cooler. It was obvious she wanted to talk about something. "I heard how Dylan, Nate Hoffman, and Pete Fuller slapped some manners on a few would-be tough guys that were swarming around the kids' car over on Elm Street. I understand a tire iron across the shins takes the starch out of a punk pretty fast." Sophia immediately put the pieces together. Last night, Sophie had called her father looking for help, and he had brushed her off. Apparently, her problem had been more serious than Tom had admitted. Sue used the word kids, so it probably meant that Holly had been involved along with Alex and her son, Logan. "I'm curious about what you heard," replied Sophia. "I'd like to see if the rumors are anywhere near the truth." By the time Sue finished telling her what the rumor mill was saying, Sophia was furious at Jake Peterson, although she kept that fact from Sue. His daughter had turned to him for help in a situation which could have been disastrous, and Tom had simply dismissed her concerns. Dylan, along with Pete and Hollis' Uncle Nate, had responded as men should. They had protected the kids and helped them get out of a bad situation. Tom had ignored his daughter's plight in favor of having sex with Sophia. The realization that she had been having sex with a man who had refused to help his own daughter and some of her friends, including Logan, stung her deeply. How low had she sunk? Dylan was 10 times the man Tom was. The sad thing was Sophia knew it all along. Why had she ever taken up with this selfish pushover? Early that afternoon, Sophia found Tom alone in the break room, enjoying a snack while his delivery truck was being serviced. She wasted no time laying into him. "Sophie called you for help last night, and you blew her off. Those kids could have been in a lot of danger, yet you told her to call AAA. What kind of father are you?" "It all worked out," replied Tom glibly. "Your husband and some of his buddies saved the day, so what's the problem?" Dylan reacted like a real man. "You turned your back on your daughter. That's the problem. My son was in that car. If your dumbass husband is so special, why am I the one screwing your brains out while he hasn't gotten laid in months?" asked Tom with a chuckle. "All the superhero in the world won't make his tool as big as mine." "You miserable pig. Being a man has nothing to do with your size," spat Sophia. "He's more man than you'll ever be. You say that, yet last night you were screaming in ecstasy when I was pumping you." "The way I see it, I have that dog beat every way that matters," replied Tom before taking another drink of his soda. "That's it. We're through. Don't ever try to talk to me again. I want nothing to do with you." Whatever was Phil's calm response. "There's lots of married women out there looking for a big bull like me. If you change your mind, you know where to find me. They'll still screw you if you ask me nicely." Sophia broke into tears and ran from the room. She had cheated on her husband, disrespected him, and risked her marriage and her family for a shallow, egotistical sociopath. She only hoped Dylan would never discover how foolish she had been. With that thought, she realized she had a lot to make up for. Lexi had just ridden Dylan to a strong climax when she heard sniffling behind her. Surprised, Lexi swung around to find Sophia watching her with tears streaming down her cheeks. "How could you do this to me?" cried Sophia. "I trusted you both and you do this." "I'm simply doing as you asked," replied Lexi as she reached for her clothes and began slipping them on, after pressing a finger to Bryce's lips, telling him to remain silent. You wanted me to keep those big-chested blondes from sinking their claws into Dylan. I sacrificed my body to achieve your goals. I didn't want you to sleep with him, and you know it, responded Sophia as anger began to replace her tears. I can't believe Dylan would cheat on me like this, and especially with some skinny witch. I know finding out Dylan and I are bumping uglies is hard to digest, but there's no reason to get insulting, reasoned Lexi. Your poor husband was going to explode. I'm simply helping relieve the pressure he was building up. Jake Peterson didn't want you having sex with your husband, so Dylan had to turn to someone. Luckily, I was in the right place at the right time. You can thank me for helping you shut Dylan off so completely and keeping Tom happy. You know about Tom? Cried Sophia. Well, yeah, replied Lexi. I think most of the free world knows about Tom. You've been sleeping with him for months. He promised he'd screw you in your marital bed every time you had sex with Dylan, so you stopped having sex with your own husband. Luckily, Tom was able to fill the void, pun intended. If Dylan knew, why didn't he say anything? Why did he allow Tom and me to carry on for so long? Asked Sophia as tears dropped from her cheeks. You're a smart girl. What would most men do when they discovered their wife was a cheating witch? Asked Lexi. He'd get very angry and yell at me. Then he'd probably divorce me, added Sophia as the reality of the situation became clearer. That sounds about right. What would happen next? Would Dylan and Logan get to stay here while you moved in with Tom? Asked Lexi calmly. I wouldn't leave my house. I wouldn't give up Logan either. If Dylan wanted a divorce, he'd have to move out. He'd pay alimony and child support. Logan would stay with me, concluded Sophia. Exactly what Dylan thought would happen, agreed Lexi. Suppose remaining close to Logan and being the best father possible was his first objective. How would he possibly achieve that goal? By not divorcing me, replied Sophia softly. He stayed around for Logan, not for me. He found out about Tom and me and essentially divorced me, just not legally. We've been living like a divorced couple for months. Haven't we? I was just too freaking dumb to realize it. In your defense, you had Phil's hard tool helping you fail to notice your husband was long gone emotionally. I'm just the skinny witch who came along after you screwed everything up. I helped Dylan heal. I told Tom we were through. I never want to see him again, stated Sophia. That was after he refused to help his daughter out of a bad situation last night. You didn't have much choice, did you? Asked Lexi rhetorically. Even cheaters have some expectations and a few limits. Are you and Dylan going to live together now? Asked Sophia as she wiped the remaining tears from her eyes. Honestly, we're pretty content with the arrangement we have. Alex and I will be moving back to LA before school begins in the fall, revealed Lexi. I'd rather he didn't know his mom is banging his best friend's dad. If it can be helped. When the time comes for me to leave, I might help Dylan choose a new partner if hell let me. So you see, I didn't steal your husband like those other mothers hoped to do. We're temporarily enjoying each other's company, much like you and Tom were. What if I won't allow this to continue? He's my husband. You have no right to sleep with him, insisted Sophia. I was given that right by you as soon as you decided to spread your legs for Jake Peterson, replied Lexi. That pretty much released Dylan from any obligations he may have had towards you. He and I are exclusive. We're able to trust each other, if you can imagine such a thing. Dylan has been told he can't have sex with you or anyone else if he wants to keep me around, added Lexi. Who knows what other bimbos Jake Peterson has slept with or what diseases he might have. You could have all kinds of disgusting stuff festering in that nasty snatch of yours. Sophia broke into tears again as she considered the statement from the woman she knew as Emma. Could Tom have been banging someone else on the side? Of course he could. Sophia no longer had any delusions as to the kind of man Jake Peterson was. She needed to be tested as soon as possible. So what happens now? Asked Sophia fearfully. Let's just carry on as we have been. I'll stop in and wake Dylan up as often as I can. You keep working late and avoiding him as much as possible. I think ITLL work just fine. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, responded Lexi. I'm not going to do that, stated Sophia flatly. You're leaving in several months. I'm gonna stick around and show Dylan just how great a wife I can be. He won't need your skinny bum. Except he knows my skinny bum is faithful to him while your round bum is out there waiting to be tapped by whoever comes along, countered Lexi. Essentially, I'm in control of your sex life or at least your sex life with Dylan. I won't allow him near your nasty cesspool while he's in a relationship with me. I won't risk disease, and he's not very keen on it either. One thing I've learned, albeit too late, is there's a lot more to a relationship than sex," stated Sophia with false bravado. "In fact, sex with no love or commitment is really pretty demeaning. You'll be doing the things a wife should gladly do for her husband while you'll just be giving him sex. Think about that." "Okay," replied Lexi. "I've thought about it. Let's do it. You make great lasagna and meatloaf for the guy. Keep the toilets clean and wash the skid marks from his boxers. He'll ride his meat as often as I can. We'll see who's happier." "Dylan, I need to tell you how ashamed and sorry I am for the way I disrespected you. Can you ever forgive me?" pleaded Sophia. "How could he ever trust you again?" asked Lexi. "He may forgive you someday, but how in hell could you ever regain his trust? That's always been the hurdle cheaters face. I suggest you try to enjoy the next few months while you're still Bryce's wife, at least in name. Realize what you threw away for some strange sex and learn from it. Dylan doesn't want to break up his family while Kevin's in school. Thad'll give you around 9 months after I leave to do your damnedest to win him back. When Logan graduates, Dylan will probably toss your bum to the curb," predicted Lexi. "Dylan, why are you allowing her to speak for you?" demanded Sophia. "I'm not just his lover. I'm his best friend," answered Lexi. "While you were whispering sweet nothings in Phil's ear, Dylan and I had our own pillow talk. I promised to handle this very situation if and when it finally arrived. He promised to screw my brains out once I did. Would you mind leaving us alone now?" Sophia stood there crying. Dylan stood up, put on his pants, and looked at Sophia. "It is better that you leave. I have nothing to do with you now that you know that I plan to divorce you. I will give you 2 choices. 1, you may start the divorce proceedings and ruin my relationship with my son. 2, you may sit back, screw the whole town for fun while me and my dear friend live our lives just like this. Now, before you try to choose option 1, I have a video of you having sex with that pig in our bedroom. I will make sure that the video is shared with your son, your parents, all your friends, and everyone that you work with. Yes, once my son is 18 and goes out for his school, I will divorce you for sure. Till then, you may use me as your husband on paper. Now, is there anything else that you want to ask or say?" Before she could open her mouth, Lexi spoke. "Remember how you told me that cheating is a deal breaker and you won't tolerate it if your husband is cheating on you? I knew about you sleeping with that Aholi. You're a hypocrite and a very bad one." Sophia left the room crying and thinking about what just happened and how she had lost the best thing in her life for some cheap sex. Sophia and Dylan continued with their lives, living in separate parts of the house, and Lexi moved to LA. Sophia tried everything to get Dylan back. She tried to walk naked in the house, tried to bang his door at nights. Nothing worked, and Dylan did not lay a glance at her. In her frustration one day, Sophia walked around the home naked and tried to do a lap dance for Dylan. He casually shoved her off of him and simply walked away. Sophia screamed, "What does that woman have that I don't have? I have a better body, and I love you. Why won't you make love to me?" Dylan stopped and turned around. "She has my trust. She has my love. She has class, and she does not open her legs to screw any Tom, Dick, and Harry." Dylan filed for divorce as soon as his son left for his academy. He mentioned the reason for divorce as irreconcilable differences to get the ball rolling faster. 3 months later, the divorce was granted. On the day of the divorce, Sophia walked up to Dylan and handed him a letter. To her utmost surprise, Dylan took the letter and dumped it in a trash can. Sophia saw that and collapsed on the ground crying. "You won't even take my apology and my goodbye?" Dylan looked at her and said, "Not worth the effort," and walked away. Dylan took an inheritance and bought the share of the house from Sophia and negotiated a settlement. Since his son was 18, there was no child support. 3 months later, Jake Peterson was kidnapped by 3 men from outside a local bar. After 3 weeks of searching, some of his remains were found in a big plastic drum that was dumped in the woods outside the city. Police suspected the work of a copycat killer who used the same method as Santiago Meza Lopez, also known as El Pazolero. The police suspected that a husband of a woman Tom was dating was the culprit, but the investigation was closed after none of the suspects could be linked to the crime. 1 year after Dylan and Sophia divorced, Lexi and Dylan married each other in a small ceremony. Logan and Alex were happy as they were now brothers. Although Logan was unhappy with his father divorcing his mom, he changed his opinion after his father played the video for him. Dylan and Lexi did not have any other kids, but they never complained. 7 years later, when Logan got married, Dylan and Lexi were seated at the parents of the groom's seat, but Sophia was missing from the wedding. Thanks for watching. If you were in Dylan's shoes, how would you have handled things differently? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more intriguing stories. See you next time.